The meat had an overly sweet smell, almost sickening. When I realized what was really boiling in my neighbor's pot, my stomach turned, and I knew I would never be the same again. Welcome to the Sloom Room channel. Today, I'm going to share an account I found while browsing obscure forums on the internet. A true story told by someone who chose to be identified only by the initials DM, posted in 2019. It's disturbing, it's real, and I guarantee you're going to want to stay until the end. Leave a like to help me keep bringing these stories. I met Elena when I moved into the apartment next to hers in an old building in Vladivostok. It was the winter of 2017, and I needed a cheap place after I lost my job at the factory. The building smelled like mold and sour cabbage, but the rent fit my budget. Elena was a woman in her 60s, far too thin, with sunken eyes that seemed to look right through you. She always wore a black shawl over her head, even inside the house. At first, I thought she was just an eccentric old woman. She greeted me in the hallway with a quick nod, but she never smiled. The first few weeks were normal. I did odd jobs, came back late, hardly saw the neighbors, but I started noticing strange things. Every Thursday night, without fail, a strong smell came from her apartment. It wasn't a normal food smell. It was something metallic, sweet, that clung to your throat. And there was also that low murmur, as if she were praying or singing in a language I didn't recognize. One night, I came back earlier than usual. It was almost 11 o'clock when I walked down the hallway and saw her door slightly open. A dim light spilled into the corridor. And that smell was stronger than ever. I should have kept walking. I should have gone into my apartment and forgotten about it. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I walked up slowly and peered through the crack. What I saw froze me in place. Elena had her back to me, hunched over the stove. On her table there were bones, clean bones, some still with bits of cartilage, and hanging from a makeshift clothesline above the sink, there were pieces of meat that clearly weren't pork or beef. The texture was different. The color was different. I knew what it was, but my mind refused to accept it. She turned around suddenly, and our eyes met. For one endless second, we just stared at each other. Then she smiled. It was the first time I had ever seen her smile, and that smile had nothing human about it. It was far too wide, showing yellow, uneven teeth. I ran to my apartment and locked the door. My heart was beating so hard, I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. I called the police, but when I tried to explain what I had seen, I realized how absurd it sounded. Bones, strange meat. They asked if I was sure if it couldn't be some kind of misunderstanding. They promised to send someone to check, but I knew they weren't taking it seriously. I tried not to sleep that night, but exhaustion won around 4 a.m. I woke up to knocks on my door. It was 7:30. When I opened it, still half asleep, Elena was there. She was holding a plate covered with a cloth. "For you," she said in that hoarse voice. "A neighborly gift. Sorry for scaring you yesterday." I took the plate without thinking, still confused. She was already turning to leave when I asked what it was. "Stew," she answered without looking back. "Family recipe." I closed the door and set the plate in the sink. I couldn't even lift the cloth. That smell was there again, faint but unmistakable. I threw everything in the trash still covered. The following days were hell. I avoided leaving the apartment, but I needed to work. Every time I walked past her door, I felt like she was on the other side, listening, waiting. I started sleeping badly, having nightmares about that too wide smile. It was on the second Thursday that I heard the screams. It was almost midnight when I woke up to a muffled sound coming from her apartment. It wasn't a normal scream. It was a guttural sound, pure agony, that got cut off little by little until it became a moan and then silence. This time, I called the police and insisted. I said there was an assault, that someone was being hurt. It took them 20 minutes to arrive. When they knocked on her door, Elena answered calmly, in a robe, as if she had just woken up. She let them in. I watched from my slightly open door. I heard the officers talking to her in Russian, their voices overly polite. They searched the apartment briefly and left. One of them came over to me and said there was nothing wrong, that the lady was alone, that I'd probably heard her TV, but I knew what I had heard. And they had seen something, because they left faster than they should have, and they wouldn't look each other in the eye. The following week, the apartment downstairs was empty. The woman who lived there, a Ukrainian in her 40s, just disappeared. No one asked questions. No one cared. In that building, people came and went. That's how it was. But I started putting the pieces together, the Thursdays, the smells, the bones, the Ukrainian woman who vanished. And then I remembered, before I moved in, there had been a man living in my apartment. The superintendent said he had gone back to Georgia, that he'd left suddenly. I went to the library and used the public computer to do some research. I found old news articles, archived cases, a series of disappearances in that area over the course of 15 years, never more than 2 people a year. Always lonely people with no family in the city, always in the same neighborhood. I went back home determined. I was going to move. I was going to get out of there immediately. But when I got to the building, there was an ambulance out front. I ran up the stairs. Elena's apartment was open. Paramedics were carrying a stretcher. It was her. Elena was lying there, pale, her eyes still open, but glassy. Dead. Heart attack, they said. The superintendent was there, shaking his head. Poor thing, he said. She lived here her whole life. They took her away. The next day, they came to clean out the apartment. They threw everything away. I saw the black bags being carried to the truck. Lots of bags. I stayed there for 3 more weeks, long enough to save some money and move out. On my last night, I went into her apartment. The door was unlocked, the place empty, but the smell was still there, soaked into the walls. In the corner of the kitchen, under a loose floorboard, I found an old notebook. The pages were yellowed, covered in tiny handwriting in Old Russian. There were drawings, too, strange symbols, instructions, and at the end, a list of names, 17 names. I recognized the last one. It was the Ukrainian woman from downstairs. I burned the notebook that same night. I don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe I should have handed it over to the authorities. But something told me they wouldn't do anything, that it was better to let it disappear. I moved out the next day. I never went back to that building. I never spoke about it again until now. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel and share this story. I need more people to know. I need someone else to remember that she existed.